You got my back. I got your back. You got my back. I got your back. 1, 2, 3.
Hey, this is Tony Mitchell coming at you, Championship Mindset Conversations. This is our third podcast. Man, I'm excited. I got my main man, a graduate of Championship Mindset, if you will, Thomas Wallace. Thomas is a graduate of Wilkinsburg High School, got a football scholarship to go play at Edinburgh. Thomas majored in education at Edinburgh. Thomas was a 2-year starter in the secondary headbanger, one of those guys that really like to mix it up. The thing that I always loved about Thomas was he was undersized, but his heart was as big as the field. So this guy has carried that mindset into his life, his personal life, his spiritual life, his corporate life, and he's achieving some great things. I'm going to have Thomas, in his own words, tell you a little bit about where he grew up, his family, and some personal bio.
Absolutely. So, first, thank you for having me on the podcast. It's always a pleasure to join you, especially when we're talking about championship mindset, because I know the importance of it and what it does for our youth and even some of our adults listening. So, thank you for that, Coach Mitch. As you said, Thomas Wallace, born and raised in the Wilkinsburg area during a very tough time. Was born in the 80s, raised in that late 80s up through the 90s era. Drug epidemic was going on, the war on drugs, as well as the gang banging era. Was raised with my mother and my father originally in the household. Then they got divorced when I was about 13, 12, 13. And that's when the real challenges really set in.
How many siblings? Man?
Yeah, so I have an older brother, 3 months older. He actually calls me his older brother. It's my father's biological son, but he lived with us all of our life. And even when my mom and father got divorced, he still stayed with my mom. So that's my brother. That's my blood. Then my sister, LaShawn, who's in between us, and then my younger brother, Lorenzo. But for the boys, once the divorce occurred, it was the three of us running really tight. I also had a foster brother who was in a mix, Charles Jackson. And we got involved in the streets, unfortunately, very heavy, doing a lot of things we shouldn't have been doing. And running with a crew that we probably shouldn't have been with at that time.
Older guys.
Yeah, I always ran with the older guys. So even when I was around that 13-year age, I was running with guys who had already graduated in their 20s and so forth, and learned a lot of things streetwise that probably wasn't good for me then. But living in a neighborhood like that, that's how you survive, especially when you're out there. So while I understand how detrimental it is now, back then it's probably what helped me survive in the streets. So I was doing a lot of things that I even entering from that 13 middle school age up through high school. To about sophomore year when I met you, doing a lot of things just out in the streets, in and out of juvie, just being in trouble in school, causing headaches in school.
But see, the thing I remember about you, Thomas, is you were a leader.
Yeah.
And even if it was negative sometimes, you were a leader.
It was.
You were somebody that the kids looked up to because of the way you carried yourself. You always had the ability to command the room when you came in the room. And I remember when I got the job in Wilkinsburg, one of my biggest challenges was to find some leaders. And man, I'm asking people, Dave Jones, Thomas Wallace, Chaz Clemens, Ron Moore, I'm like, are these guys leaders? And like, they have the ability if they choose to be. And I remember, man, seeing you with them braids, man. You had the big old fro, man, and you just reminded me of me, right?
Yeah.
Because I used to have the big fro with the braids all the time, and got the nice smile. And I'm like, man, this dude's a killer for real. And it was always my goal to make you the best version of yourself that you can be.
And you were successful, Coach. coach. I could say that for sure. That's just one of those qualities that I feel like I was born with. I didn't do anything intentional, especially then, to be a leader. I was the light skinned cat, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we got the light skinned cats back then always got challenged. So the way I kind of emerged from a leader is that I had the combination of the light skinned pretty boy look. But then when I was challenged, I was quick to
you was good with your hands.
I was quick
brother.
to get it on, and I was successful in that area. So cats didn't quite know how to take me. So that's originally how I emerged as a leader. And luckily, through meeting you and that midway through high school, I was able to turn that into something positive.
So now, when I think about championship mindset, we talk about acceptance, we talk about courage, we talk about wisdom. One of the first things I taught you guys when I started coaching was the Serenity Prayer. Yeah. And the Serenity Prayer revolves around acceptance, courage, and wisdom. We used to recite that daily. And I think you embodied what that meant, because once you gained acceptance to me not being crazy, everybody was like, okay, well, coach is all right.
Yeah.
Coach is all right. Tell me your first impression of the new coach when you heard about the new coach and the feeling that was going into school.
I think you summed it up as one word: crazy. But that was just it. So we were used to a different style of coaching when I originally got to the high school, and even.
Hey, this is Tony Mitchell coming at you with Championship Mindset. Podcast number 3. Thomas Wallace is my guest. We want to pick right up where we left off. I was the head coach at Wilkinsburg High School from 96 to 99, and Thomas was one of my best players. More importantly, he was one of the best people that I've ever coached. And I want to start with his impression of the new coach, the rumors that are flowing around the school, and what you guys thought about playing for the new coach.
Absolutely. So the rumor was that the new coach was a little crazy, and I came to see that full fledged. We were talking a little bit about the leadership and so forth. But what had happened was we had our hangout areas usually where I was on different corners or different areas of Wilkinsburg, and it seems though coach knew where those spots were. So the exhibit A of being a little crazy was coming to those areas and telling us we needed to get our bands playing football. I think where I started going, before we took a brief pause, where I started going was that coming from playing with the Wilkinsburg Hornets and having great success there, to now to the high school where they were 0-20 plus.
Yeah.
We had made the decision collectively as a group that we weren't going to play football for the high school. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how you got wind of that, but that's when it became more of an irritant to our business in the community.
I needed to have my guys.
Yeah, because you would show up and tell us that we needed to be at practice or when the next practice was, different dates. So I think that was exhibit A. And then coming to the school as well, coming to the school personally. So what we called a little crazy back then, now see the passion and just how committed you were to seeing the youth of Wilkinsburg be in a better place. But besides that, once we did commit to coming to a practice, we found out really how crazy we were.
I remember that first practice.
Yeah, it was just a different environment. I'm like, this guy's trying to kill us with the first practice, with the calisthenics, the weightlifting, but it was a different vibe, and that was one of the things that we were drew to. We were drew to crazy back then. So and you could tell within that it was organized. It was very thought out as far as how to engage us. And what the expectation would be once we committed to playing for Wilkinsburg. So that was one of the best things. We just, again, collectively agreed that we were going to go to a practice. And once we went to that one practice, we're like, yeah, this guy's crazy, but we might have a chance to win with him.
And that was my biggest concern, was making sure that what I was selling, you guys were willing to purchase it.
Yep.
And once I realized that you were on board, Chaz Bone was on board, Bam was on board, I knew I had a shot at getting everybody else to follow.
Yeah, yeah.
And, I look back to, your maturation, and I think you took a huge step when I decided to make you guys captains.
Yeah.
It was you, Dave Jones, Lou, and Chaz Bone. Tell me about that when you found out I won, when I called you guys and said, I want to make you captains.
That was a huge step. That was a huge step just in life for me. It was one of those times where we had captains that were leading the team, but they were captains because of their talent on the field.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't necessarily leaders, and we didn't respect them as leaders. Those guys were good, and some of them even had leadership qualities, but they weren't leaders of the team. And we actually, behind the scenes, were had some influence, not always in a positive way, but Chaz, Dave Jones, once Lou got there, myself, Bam, Rue, some of the other guys had some influence over the team and what happened and what didn't happen. So once you named us captains, that was a big priority. And I remember sitting down with those guys and telling them, like, all right, it's time to take this serious. And that was sophomore year. We had guys who were seniors who had been playing there forever, were waiting to be captains because that's just kind of how it always played out. The most talented guys, once they hit their senior year, they were the captains. But you came in with a different method and actually named us as sophomores to be captains. And I sat down with those guys and told them, I'm like, all right, this is a big change. And guys initially didn't look to take it serious. They thought it was just one more thing. And I'm like, nah, this is a big deal.
Yeah. This
is a big deal. And I remember talking to them even as that year progressed about some of the things we were doing outside the field. Once I seen how committed you were, I wanted to be just as committed. So that was one of the things. That's where championship mindset really started. And, looking back on it, I didn't know at the time, but that was one of the things that got my mindset into, all right, the things that come naturally to me, just leadership, some of those aggression, those things can be used in a positive light, and not only to my benefit, but I can influence others so that they could benefit from some of my talents and some of the things that they've been blessed with as well, and help them see that in themselves. So it really transformed me.
Well, I look at that sophomore year, and I had never coached track before. I was football, baseball.
It was really crazy during track.
Football, baseball, basketball, and we had a track coach. Remember Bob?
Yep.
Bob was the track coach, and we found out that Bob was going to be leaving, taking a different job, and I'm like, whoa, I was going to help him coach, but I wasn't going to be the head coach. But I knew at that point that if I got you guys to train as sprinters, that we was going to be the toughest and the fastest team. Yep. We was already one of the toughest teams, but we didn't have a lot of speed. And I look at you, I look at Dave Jones, and you guys coming out of the youth thing, you guys played on the line.
Yep.
You were never known for speed.
At all.
It was aggression, but no speed.
At all. Zero.
So
it was only aggression if I could make it to the ball.
So my biggest challenge was to see if the training I had, like with plyometrics and resistance training, would work to make you guys faster.
Yeah. And
the only way I could find out is if I coached you in track. Yeah. So I remember telling you, man, y'all should all run track. And of course, there was a couple of guys like, "No, you crazy? I ain't running track."
Yep.
But we ended up with 21 guys and 15 girls that signed up for track. Tell me a little bit about your first experience with track.
Oh man, that's when if it wasn't certified before, it was definitely certified that year. Crazy for track season. There's some days where I don't even remember, just from pure exhaustion, and running so much and training and learning the form and that. But again, that was another thing that the crazy was very strategic in a way that your belief and you going through your training now that I know, you training and learning these things and implementing them to help us benefit from them. Once we bought in, it was night and day. I mean, literally, I was one of, I said jokingly, meaning if I can make it to the ball carrier, but that was serious.
Mm-hmm.
I was one of the slowest people on the team coming into the year. I had the heart.
Mm-hmm.
I could at times get myself in position,
Mm-hmm.
but as far as just a straight out sprint, I was running no one down.
Mm-hmm.
Fast forward to senior year,
Mm-hmm.
qualifying for states
Yeah.
and running people who ran track
Yes.
now from behind.
Yes. Yes.
So the methods work, and that was one of the things that we really bought into is whenever you was able to see, all right, this guy is not only going to push us to see just how much we wanted, and almost to the break, but there's a method and there's a payout, a reward at the end. That's what really just sold us, and that's the foundation of what I use now, or even professionally. It's like at times it's going to hurt, at times you ain't going to feel like doing it, at times it's an inconvenience, at times it seems crazy, but when you look at the payout and reward at the end, it's grand.
And the thing that I remember the most is when we talked about going to states that first year. We had the relay team qualified, and Chaz Bone qualified in the 1 and the 2.
Yep.
So we could take an alternate. So I knew I was taking 6 guys to states. And it just so happened that you was one of those 6 guys. You know, and I remember talking to you guys about doing this, and it was probably right before the WPO Championships.
Yep.
And the infamous Penn Hills Picnic came up. For people who don't live in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, especially in the East End, the Penn Hills Picnic is the summer event. That is the event, man. You get your Jordans, you get your sweatsuit, you get whatever you need. You going out there and you putting in work at the Penn Hills Picnic.
Yeah.
There were guys on your team that didn't want to qualify for states.
Yeah.
Because
it was going to sabotage it.
It was going to sabotage it, man. And tell me your experience with that whole thing.
Oh man, that was one heck of an experience, because it originally started out as a joke. Like, we found out that the dates were lining up to be to conflict with one another, and like you said, that was the youth event.
That was the event.
You couldn't miss it. It didn't matter what was happening. Parents didn't plan vacation around that time. Like, it was the event. So once we started getting closer to the championship, and we learned that the dates were conflicting with coming close to conflicting, we had started talking about how could we get out of this. Like, guys had started joking about faking injuries,
dropping the baton.
Yeah, and then it started getting serious. It was like, all right, we can't qualify. Like, we have to figure a way out. And I remember saying, all right, this is getting to a level that is serious. And we had to do something about it.
I remember us practicing, and I kind of got wind of what was going on, because I knew you guys didn't have that vision.
Yeah.
Everybody had that fishbowl mindset. Everybody wanted to be in the same fishbowl because it was comfortable. And the Penn Hills Picnic was comfortable. You know, going to states, what is that? We never went there. I had to sell you guys on this could be the beginning of something that's real special. It's a journey. And you guys are looking at me like, man.
No, it started out as a sale. Once you got wind of it, it wasn't a sale no more. That's when the crazy kicked in.
And so my thing at that point was, we had you, C.J. Younger, Chuck Collins, Lou Mitchell, Chaz Bone, Dave Jones. Okay, so we're getting ready for the WPO Championships. And I know there was like talk of dropping the baton. I remember we got out there, Southside Beaver, and we get to the field, and I called you, Chaz, Dave, and Lou down on the actual football field. And I said, I'm just letting y'all know, somebody dropped that baton, somebody walking back from Southside Beaver.
Yeah, it wasn't that calm, Coach.
No. I'm sure. I can remember that I was heated.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, we done worked all year. You guys are going to do something Wilkinsburg has never done and whatever, and you're going to drop the baton. I'm like, Chaz Bone looked at me like,
yeah, word got out.
So that day, we obviously qualified to go to States. And you guys had to make a decision whether you were going to go to States or go to Penn Hills Picnic. Tell me at what point you guys realized that it was going to be a good thing to go to States.
It was reflecting on all that you had instilled in us throughout the year. Honestly, you mentioned the fishbowl, and who could ever forget the famous line of being stuck in the hood, walking your pit bull, or on that bike. So once we started, that was one of the things. Like I get named as one of the leaders, but I was just that. We honestly came collectively together on a lot of decisions, and I remember us talking in the group and everyone. There was still some hesitancy about going to States. And when we really started talking about what it meant for our future, I think that was one of the things that stood out about me, is that I was able to be more visionary and say, all right, let's talk about what this means for the future. Like, we know the immediate impact. We know we're going to miss Penn Hills, and we know how, that's going to hurt, but what does this mean for the future? What happens if we don't go? And once we started really thinking about those questions and answering those questions, we agreed that we could go. Then we started looking at some of the positives, like who we could potentially meet at
There you go. And I made sure I put that in there. I put that in y'all's mind. I said, look, man, you meet girls that you never would ever meet before. They run track. They're from Philly. They're from different parts of the state. And I can remember us going up there, arriving there, and going to our first little practice down the track. And it was like the light switch clicked on. We're coming down the little path at Shippensburg to get to the track. And we had uniforms that were like basically basketball uniforms. We had shorts. We had tights. We didn't have the bloomers. The girls had same shorts as the guys. So we get up there, and man, we come down to the track, and y'all see them uniforms. The girls are practicing, and Chaz Bone, of course, being Chaz Bone, was like, "Yo."
I can't remember if it was Chaz or Dave, but they made a good point. When you're young and in high school, that's pretty much all you think about is girls. And that was our driving force of the Penn Hills Picnic. And I don't remember if it was Chaz or Dave, but one of them made a really good point. And they said, going to the Penn Hills Picnic is where you meet all the girls that's going to be stuck in walking their pit bulls or riding those two-wheel bikes. And here, not only are they fine, but they're in shape and they have aspirations. So it kind of changed perspective once we got there.
And it was so much fun to watch you guys grow in those 2-3 days that we were up there. For a lot of you guys, it was the first time really getting out of Wilkinsburg, staying overnight, eating somebody else's food. We're in the cafeteria, and myself and the assistant coaches at one table. All 6 guys, you were at another table. And I remember telling you guys, this is what college life is like. You get a meal plan, you eat what you want, and it was amazing because after about 15 minutes in the caf, you came over and said, Coach, is this really what college is like? I said, absolutely. Absolutely. And I remember you going back over to the table saying, yo, man, I'm trying to go to college.
That was my mental commitment right there. That was when I knew I was leaving Wilkinsburg. I don't know that I was fully convinced before that moment. That was kind of the light bulb moment where I went and sat down, and I remember us. We were just so naive or just so ignorant. To what was outside of Wilkinsburg.
Fishbowl.
Yeah, that whole fishbowl mentality. We were just so ignorant. And I remember going through the line and thinking about it, like, is this just here? Is this whole process, everything, this environment, is this because of the athletes up here? Is this what it's like every year? And I remember going down and sitting at the table. Originally, I sat down first. And I asked the guys that I was sitting with, like, is this what college is like? And no one knew. No one, everybody was like, I don't know. I was like, I'm going to go ask Coach.
Yes.
and I already knew, like, if the answer was yes, then I'm going to school somewhere. And that was my mental commitment to, I'm getting outside of Wilkinsburg, and college may be the thing for me.
And I really appreciate the fact that you saw an opportunity and you seized that opportunity. when I think about what you went through up until that point in your personal life, and that moment where the light switch clicked on, we're going to hold that thought. We're going to finish this segment, and we're going to get back with that thought. Hey, Championship Mindset Conversations, podcast number 3, coming back at you. We stopped with the thought of the experience up at States and you realizing what college could do for you. Tell me in your own words how driven you became to actually go to college.
It was one of those things where, for me, once I lock on to something, it's just like the track thing. Like, I started out one of the slowest athletes, but I knew with the right training that you were implementing, that if I just locked on to that and did what I needed to do, then I could be one of the fastest with that vision. And I went from one of the slowest literally on the team to one of the fastest literally on the team. So it was that same mindset that got me to college. Once that moment up at States, where it was like, yeah, this is what college is like, and I said in my head, college is for me. I could do that. Not everything, but the majority, 90% of what I did became about. I would ask that question: is this in the direction of my goal of getting to college? So my behavior in class changed. My interactions out on the street changed. Even my home experiences changed. Everything became directed about getting to college, or focused on athletics, which was the driving force. I knew that would be the vice to help me get eligibility into college, because I had spent so much time messing around with my grades that my grades weren't out. Academic scholarship wasn't going to happen, but I could get eligible.
Right.
And that became the focus. So throughout the remainder of high school, that was all. That was the question. I always asked myself, is this headed toward my goal? Whatever behavior I was displaying at the time. And I started eliminating those ones where the answer came back no. I started reducing those behaviors, whether it was in the street, on the field, in the classroom, whatever it was. By the time I became a senior, my grades had improved immensely.
Drastic.
Yeah, so and athletics had picked up. The one thing that became a challenge was that by the time I graduated, I had two kids. So that became also a driving force. It could be seen as a barrier, and it somewhat was. It was a challenge. Having 2 newborns, pretty much, going into college was a challenge, but it also was fuel to my fire, because I knew I had that vision of getting through college. So fast forward to getting to college.
How many guys from your school went to college with you?
Yeah, I can remember sitting in a room with 3 other guys that all came from Wilkinsburg. We all went up to Edinburgh, and I remember them doing the whole where they tell you, look to the left, look to the right. I didn't think that really existed. But they really did it at an orientation. And of course, all 4 of us are sitting together, and we're cracking up, because we're like, they never expected. Like, you may come with another friend, and then there's someone you don't know to one side or the other. And I remember us cracking up, because we were like, they never expected like 4 guys to come up here, and we all getting through this.
Yes.
And after my freshman year, partway through my sophomore year, I was the only one there. I was the only one there. And I remember some of those guys and some of the guys that I'm friends with now, they used to laugh at me, because I went into college with that same mindset. I already knew through the education that I was receiving, as well as some of my own behaviors, I was already behind. When I went to my first college course, I'm like, whoa, this is real. So I went into college with that same mindset. Is this getting me to my goal of graduation?
Right.
Especially having 2 little ones now. Now I'm not only working for me, I have to work for them as well. So going into it with that mindset, we would go to a basketball game. And I would be there with my textbooks, reading, trying to get caught up. They'd laugh at me. There would be nights where guys were going out, and I'm asleep in the library. They done locked me in the library. I don't even know how many times I've been locked in the Edinburgh Library. I set that alarm off so many times because I would go up on one of the top floors, find a corner, take a chair, put it in the corner, and read or study whatever I had to do because I knew I had to get caught up, even when there wasn't a test. I was just trying to get caught up. So that's the competitive edge coming out as well, because I would see people in class answering questions, and I'm sitting there quiet, not because I was shy, not that I just didn't know it.
Exactly.
So I'm like, I gotta get caught up, and that became just the mindset. Again, that championship mindset. It started with high school, and then really instilling and following that lead of someone that's committed, that's passionate about you doing the right thing, and then you being willing to sacrifice things that aren't helping you get to the goal. As we talked about with the Kennywood picnic, that's one of those moments that you don't realize is a life lesson. When you're going through it. But then when you come out the other end, especially as an adult, and as you're getting into your adulthood or even in your adulthood, you realize, wow, these are all life lessons that set me up for success. So that was the mindset that I had throughout college.
Tell me about your last year in college when you knew you were going to graduate. You knew you were going to have an education degree. And tell me how excited you were that you're about to get that degree.
It was excitement and a scary thing all at the same time. So the scary part was being set free into the world and not knowing what was next. The excitement was that no one else in my family had done it yet. I think my grandfather was just going back. As a matter of fact, I know he was just going back because we took a picture at my graduation, both of us in our cap and gown. So my grandfather was graduating at that time. He was the only other person in my family at that time to graduate college. So it was an exciting time, and also I knew I had set an example for the hood or for Wilkinsburg. As you know, there were others that had done it before me, but not others that had quite had the career path that I had. There were some others. One of the people that come to mind because he went to the same school as Mike Sims. So I know Mike had done it. There are other guys who went through it, but I was one of those guys who had kind of went all the way from, transition of really being a bad influence in the community to now a college graduate. So it was really, really exciting time, not only for myself, but my family. My family was overjoyed. My mom was happy. My dad, my uncles, everyone. I remember everyone coming up and being there, especially that last week. It was just like a party week. It was a big celebration because I finally got there.
So my thing, when I look back on your journey, your championship mindset journey, you went from a piece of coal. You went through that process where pressurized diamonds are made. And you came out this sparkly, shiny diamond, having gone through all the different things you went through. Tell me about your experience with coming to where you are now, employment-wise, for the YMCA, Greater Pittsburgh.
That was a whole nother growth experience in itself. So I graduated and I originally taught school, kindergarten and first grade. My first 2 years learned very quickly that wasn't what I wanted to do. But throughout that process, so I was teaching. I got back and I got custody of my son, who was then 5. And with that teaching job, he would go to school with me because he was in kindergarten. He would go to school with me throughout the school day. I was going up to Wilkinsburg, doing some coaching there, some volunteer coaching.
Working
part-time, going out to Monroeville, working part-time with you as a personal trainer. And all while I had Lorenzo with me. He was going from job to job. And I remember my grandfather calling me one day just to check in on me, see how things were going after with the teaching job and so forth. And I was telling him that it was rough. I got this 5-year-old. I'm taking to these 3 jobs. We get home about 10 at night. Then I'm trying to bathe him and feed him, and it was real challenging. And I didn't know it at the time, but I was on the verge of a breakdown. I didn't know what to do. And my grandfather, straight shooter as he was, he said, "You're a fool." He said, because he had volunteered at the Y and did work with the Y for the longest. I can remember being a kid and going to YMCA events, and he said, "You're a fool." He said, "You need to look for a job at the Y." He said, because at the Y, you could coach, you could train, you could teach, and you got childcare all under the same roof. I remember that next day I was looking everywhere I could for different resources for any job opening there was. And I got lucky because I came across the Homewood Y hiring for a healthy living director. Why athletics was my whole background, and I was doing the personal training with you, so it just seemed like the most appropriate fit. And I applied, and my grandfather intentionally didn't tell me. I don't know if I didn't remember or if I didn't think that that's where he did the majority of his volunteering, but he actually did the majority of his volunteering at Homewood. And I told him I was applying for this job, and he didn't say anything. Come to find out, he wanted me to get it on his own, on my own. So I met Olivia Jones and ended up being the first full-time hire for a new building that they were building as the healthy living director. And the rest from there is history. I implemented that same model that I had did time and time again in my life, is that I set my eyes on creating a career path within the YMCA. So I started out as the healthy living director, and I can remember that Eric Mann was the CEO at that time, and we were just doing the construction for the new building, and he came by before it was even new, and they were doing hard hat tours or whatever. And he introduced himself in some type of way. He knew that I had pledged Alpha. Well, Eric was a Q. So I remember just chopping it up with him, and I'm like, wow, this guy's the CEO. And that became the goal, was just creating a career path through the Y. And I had a number of promotions in Homewood. Went on from Homewood to Barrow as the associate executive director, then to Penn Hills as the executive director. I'm now back at Homewood as the executive director, and just was offered and accepted a senior executive director up in Delaware.
And when I think about that process of you becoming the man that you've become, it makes me proud, because I understand that your mindset started in Wilkinsburg.
Yeah. It started in Wilkinsburg, like I said, with that first practice, and really committing myself to something. And I've told you time and time again, and I'll say it again, just thank you for that foundation and throughout the support throughout the years, because it's not like you're a high school coach then went away. You're somebody that I called when I was in college. You're somebody I called when I got my first job. You're somebody that I still call today. So I thank you for that support, but it really did start with that first practice and seeing that was the lesson learned, that if you believe in someone else that's willing to invest in you, then you could go far places, all the way up to the college experience, and saying, yeah, this could be for you. And then giving me the tools, helping me sharpen my tools to get me to that end goal, and career-wise as well. So, championship mindset's a real thing.
Yes.
And people want to rely on talent, or people want to rely on other things, but it really starts in the mind, and setting that mind to what you want, setting that goal, and then allowing people to come in and take part in your life to help you sharpen those tools to get to where you want to be. It's real.
And the best is yet to come for you.
Yeah.
I'm
hoping so.
Man, we
the goals keep growing.
Yeah, we've come a long way, man. From 11 years old to 38 now.
Yeah.
And I think the greatest thing that we can do with these podcasts is to share our stories.
Yes, sir.
Because there's so many people that you've given back to that I'm still trying to give back to. We're going to keep giving.
Yeah.
Championship mindset is the gift that we'll keep giving.
Yes, sir.
So you're going to Delaware, but at some point we'll reconnect, because our mission is to give back.
Absolutely.
So, I want to thank you for coming on the podcast. I want to thank you for buying into the crazy guy.
It's always
all those years ago.
It's a pleasure.
And, I wish you nothing but luck in Delaware, but, we're going to stay connected, because that's what we do.
Yes, sir. Thanks, Coach.
Championship Mindset Conversations. We out.
You got my back. I got your back.